This is the giant paper flower cluster class. It's a lot of fun. Every time I do it here in town with the ladies, they just love it. They get to go home with giant flowers to do a beautiful wall art in their house, or if they have a party or an event. It looks beautiful everywhere. Some people, I know a lady, she put it on top of her staircase. So when you go up the stairs, you have this beautiful cluster of flowers, or even as a headboard in the bedroom. It's lovely too. So, and of course, it's been really popular in nurseries. So Jocelyn, your little girl is coming, eh? Oh, I see. Okay, she's there. Hi. Okay. Wonderful. Okay, so as I mentioned the last time, all the techniques we're gonna do together today are from my book, Bold and Beautiful Paper Flowers. All the templates are in there too. So while I go ahead and teach the techniques, I'm gonna open a few pages and show you where you can find the references in the book. Hey, the puppy. And for the ones who don't know me, last year I had the privilege to have my work feature on Canada Post stamps. If you used some stamps last year, the flower series, it's a beautiful gardenia paper flowers that I made with crepe paper. So they were photographed and then featured on Canada Post stamps. So that was quite an honor, a beautiful project that I enjoy doing very much. So cluster, so we're gonna do that. So to start, we'll do the largest of the flowers, and you should have for that flower model, there's one big circle. These large petals that looks like a seashell, you have 10 of those. And then you should have 5 of these ones, of the smaller ones in your kit. And 3 of the large snowflakes. We're starting to curl the large petals. And the technique here we're going to use for the smaller ones, so it's very easy. I use my larger dowel, and then I take one side of the petal and I curl it a little bit in, like this. It doesn't have to be too tight. And then I turn it around, and then the other side, I curl it the other side, the other direction. So it looks like this. One side in and one side out. I'm gonna start that again. Curling. And then I turn it around, and then I'm curling too, again. So there's one side in and one side out. So you want to prep all your 10 petals like this. So there you go. Once you're done with your large petals, I want you to repeat the same thing with the 5 smaller ones. How is the curling going? So I did the same thing. I repeated the same curling technique with the smaller petals. Now, once you're all done, just quickly here in the book, I'm showing how overlapping, you know, where there's that cut here. When you overlap the petals, like if you do it slightly in, the petal will sit flatter. But if you overlap deeper in, see how the petal sits higher? So this will give you, you have control of your flowers, how deep or how 3D you want them to be. Like often when I do large paper flowers for a big backdrop and I have to ship, most of the flowers that I do are flatter just because I can put more in the box, right? And then I'll do a few that are a little bit more raised up to add dimension to the backdrops. So that's what I do. I'm going to show you with the large petals. when we're gonna start to glue, when you're ready to use that hot glue, if you put a little bit of glue just at the edge here, and then you overlap at the edge, you'll notice the petal is flatter, closer to the table, right? But deeper you go in, you see how automatically it raises up the petals. So for the first layer, what we're gonna do when we're gonna start mounting, I want you to do 5 of the large petals, just slightly, just very close to the edge of the, where there's the cut there, just a little bit, so the large petals will sit flatter on the table. I'm gonna show you that. I'm gonna put a little bit of glue near the edge of the, and then I'm just gonna slightly, just maybe, like this. So I'm gonna repeat that. So see, I just put glue a little bit near the edge of the cut there. And then I'm gonna overlap the other side on top of it slightly, like this. Yeah? Yeah. So you do 5 like this, and then the other 5, I'm gonna go a little bit more in because I want the petals to sit a little bit higher, not too much, maybe you see, and this is how high I'm gonna go for the second one. So just so you see, this is the flat one, and this is the higher one. See the difference, the gap there's in between? And this is just how you control how the petal are gonna sit on your base. And like I said, this is everybody, when you make your flowers, it's the way you wanted to see the end result and what you wanted to create in your surface, on your surface. So the overlapping of the petals, you control that. It's you. If you decide you want the flower to be completely tight and very 3D and deep, then you go ahead and you do all your petals like that, you know. The smaller ones, the 5 of the smaller ones, you wanted to glue them even deeper because these are going to sit higher in the center of your large flowers. So see how it's almost sitting. So I put a little bit of glue here, just a little bit of glue, and then I'm going to go deep. Like this. So when I'm gonna mount the flower, it's sitting almost straight up in the center of my flower. So you have 5 like this. Okay. What I like to, every time we started that step, one thing I like to do is, because often I come up with new flower design, and with my base, I want to make sure that everything fits properly. Is it going to be a flower with 5 petals, 6 petals, 7 petals? You know, I just want to make sure that everything overlaps nicely and it fits good. So the base that I gave you, it fits comfortably the 5 petals. But to make sure, sometimes if I don't remember, or depending how you overlap this, so I just give it a try. So I would put, you know, maybe ½ inch within the circle, and then I just go one next to the other, and I overlap the petals like this. So I just give it a try quickly with my fingers to have an idea where I'm going, because once you start putting the glue, then it's not too late, but it's kind of hard. So see, so I have an idea where my flowers, my petals are going to sit. I have my 5 petals, and everything is sitting nice on the edge of the circle, and it's overlapping. So I'm going to start gluing. Put a little bit of glue on the edge there, and then I'm going to show you right. So this is my first petal that I glue in on the circle. It's just by doing that, that's with the flatter petals, eh? You use the one that they're flat. And this, by doing this, you know, like playing around with your petals, where you're gonna glue them, it just gives you a visual of the end product. So I'm gonna add my second petal to my base next to the other one, and I try to follow the line. See, it's coming along. And I repeat that with all the petals. Just like so. I'm going to show you this. So all my petals are overlapping, and there's, like with my circle, the way I glue them, see, this is the back. There's a little bit of gap in between the petals, but I mean the base, at the base of the petals, but the petal here are all overlapping like this. So that's, it's pretty big, eh? Like this is the flatter. How the reason why I put them flatter is because it's sitting closer to the table. When we're gonna mount them, it's gonna be a flower that's gonna hold the whole thing together, you know, and it's gonna hold nice. Now I'm gonna start gluing the second layer. You wanted to glue the petals in between the first layer, staggering the petals so you're covering all the gaps. I'm gonna glue the first one, and notice the gap here, because this one here, I overlap them here deeper in. Can you see that? So I'm gonna start, I'm gonna add more glue. See how the second layer, it's in between two petals of the first layer. And how much difference it's just standing. We're going to continue. By doing the second layer with the petal raised up a little bit, it just makes the flower look fuller. But if you prefer to have them all flat for this, you know, you can do all of them the same, but I just wanted to show you, to teach you how easy you can have control of the finished look of your flower just by overlapping the gap, the cut in between in your petals. So I'm gonna add this one here.
Pretty.
When I add my second layer, and how much higher they stand in the center. So each petals are in between, like I staggered them, so they are in between the first layer. Okay. Now I'm gonna add the smaller petals. Okay, and these ones, it's the same thing. You wanted to put in the center, in between the large petals. So you always, like it's the staggering effect. When you stagger the petals, I'm gonna glue this one and then you, see, it's in between two of the large petal. And I'm gonna just put my 5 petals in the center. Gonna need a new. You know, one of these classes I did earlier this spring, I was telling my ladies how much glue sticks I lose in a day, because every time I put a new one in, it would often just fall off until it's really inside, you know, when you push with the glue. So at the end of the day, I can have like 20 glue sticks all over my floor. And then one of the ladies said, why don't you just you heat up the tip of your glue stick and then you put it in and it bonds with the one that's already inside so it doesn't fall on the floor. I have not lost a glue stick yet since. Unbelievable. Because, you know, when I'm working, there's no way I'm going to stop what I'm doing just to pick up my glue sticks, right? I just keep on going. And sometimes, like I said, they can be up to 20 on my floor. Very dangerous, by the way, when you step on those. So, and then I'm going to add my last petal. So this is how it looks when you put the 5 smaller petals inside.
Beautiful.
I use this. We're going to use our smaller dowel. And in the book, I call this technique the shaving technique because it's like the same, you know, when you have bows that you wanted to curl with scissors, it's the same technique. So I go to the base, you know, like the center of my snowflake here. And then with my finger behind, I just curl it like this and see how quickly it just automatically, and you don't have to go hard. Like sometimes I'm very passionate and I will rip them off because I go very, you know, with my heart. So you want to do that to all your snowflakes. You have 3 for this flower. So see, I have to, just like that. I just wanted to do that shaving that you do with the scissors. So I cheated again. I did 2 at the same time. And when they're all done, all prepped, all curled like this, you want to glue one inside the other by staggering them again. So you put each of the pistil in between the other ones. So I'm going to put, you always put glue at the base. So I put a little bit of glue here. And then with my hand, I open it. And then add it to, so you have 2 together. And then I'm going to add the 3rd one. Just again, put a little bit of glue at the base, at the bottom. And then I'm going to put them in between so it looks full and lush like this, like a little ball. This is the pièce de résistance, the final touch to your big bloom. You put glue at the bottom and you add it to the center of your flower. There you go. And then I always use my stick because it's hot, to press it down. Et voilà. Et voilà. So this flower that we're doing together, when I start doing the class of the giant paper flower, I decided to do the 10 petal. It's like it's the poppy from the book, but the poppy only have 6 large petals and 3 smaller ones, and of course the center. But because I thought for the class, let's make it bigger and fuller, so I added a couple extra petals on each layer. And so it's the poppy with a lot of fertilizer. Our second flower, we're going to do the same flower but smaller. Because we're doing a cluster, I always like to go with 3 flowers. So I did a pair of the similar styles, and then the 3rd flower we're going to do is the camellia. So this one too is a poppy. In a 12 inches diameter. That's the one we're doing. So you should have So you have 10 of those, one circle for your base, and then you should have 3 of the snowflakes. Okay, let's start by shaping this then while we're here, so it's ready when the flower is all assembled. And that's one point that I shared at the beginning of the book. I shared there's a page where I share my feelings about the book and the reason why I wrote it. And one of the points is, this is just basic techniques. Like what you're learning today is just the basic, but then after that, you can take any shapes of petals and create your own flowers and your own backdrop. You don't have to follow exactly what I did. You can play with designs, with, you know, even some centers of the flowers, and then just make your own. And that's the beauty of it, you know. So we're going to assemble the centers. Again, you wanted to stagger each of the pistils so it looks full. So one inside another. I always like to put the glue at the bottom, so this way I don't burn myself, which I do anyways. I burn myself all the time, but you know. You're going to prep your petals. The same thing we did the first one side up and one side down. That's what you're going to do, one side up and one side like this. So you have 10 or 8 or 5 petals, it's still going to work and it's still going to make a beautiful flower. Now, when we did the big one, we had 5 layers, the 5 petals for the first layer that were flatter. So I want you to do the same thing when you glue the cut here in the center. You're going to do 5 flatter, and then the other 5 a little bit more raised up. So this one here, it looks a little smaller or even tighter just because we're doing 1 layer, Lisa and I. It reminds me of the wild rose we did at the teacup in Bloom party there. The camellia is a classic flower. Years ago, I did a backdrop for a wedding in Toronto when I was living there. And the client really loved the camellia, the Chanel, you know, Coco Chanel. Her flower is the camellia, and she used it a lot in her couture design. So I designed the camellia, which is a similar,
beautiful.
It's almost like a replica of her of her flower when she puts on her couture pieces. So the client really wanted to have some camellia in the backdrop for her daughter's wedding, and so I came up with this design, and it's one of my favorite. It's a classic. I love to incorporate it to my backdrops. And also, so to do, we'll start curling the larger petals. My large dowel, and this one here, we're going to curl both sides of the petal the same direction. So I just give it a little bit of curl, this, and on the other side, a little bit of curl like this. See? And I go a little bit on the angle. You repeat the same technique with the smaller ones. So all 12 heart-shaped petals are curled like this on the angle. You'll have a recording too, Eileen, if I'm going too fast with some of the technique. Like this. So that's our lovely camellia, curling each side the same direction. When we're going to glue where it's cut, like where there's that cut here, it's completely different than what we did earlier. So you wait for me. These ones you're going to glue here the same way, all 8 of them for the large petals. And the way I want you to do it is when you glue the lapels together, the curls are facing down. I'm going to show you. I'm going to put a little bit of glue here. You don't want it to, you want it to keep it flat. So when I glue it, see, I glue it, but the curls are facing, when you're going to mount the flowers, the curls are going to be facing down. I'm going to lower my computer so it's better. Like this. So you prep all your 8 petals like this with your little curl facing down. And that's an important, if you wanted to have the look of the camellia. So, and sometimes when I do the class, I forget to mention that, but it can be confusing because sometimes the way you glue them, you just put a little bit of glue. See, I put a little bit of glue on the edge there, and then softly, and then my curls here are facing, will be facing the table. So these paper flower making it is just magic. So see this one here, I put it a little bit more in for the smaller petals. So it sits a little higher. That's the blue, the large ones. And then when I'm going to see the difference, there's a gap in between. It's a little higher. It makes sense. Okay. We're going to start shaping this. This little petal here, you have 3. We want to do the same technique we did with the snowflakes or the pastel. It's the shaving technique. So I go close to the center and then just softly. And if you rip it, like if you tear it, that's fine. We can glue it back. And then you just see how, just softly, by using that shaving technique, it just curls up. So, and that too, when you start mounting the petals, that too on its own, if you add something in the center, it can be just a flower. It's so cute, especially if you do a cluster. So you wanted to do all your 3 layers. Once your 3 layers of the small petals like this are curled up after you shave them with the smaller stick, you wanted to assemble. You put some glue, and then you're going to stagger the petals so they cover all the gap. And then put it in between the layers. When you have 2, it should look like this. And then I'm going to add my 3rd one. I'm just going to close it a little bit more. You can close it when you do the shaving technique, but you stop at the base and it just closes. See how you don't even have to use strength. It just automatically closes the petal. So I'm going to put some glue, and again, add it in the center by staggering. So it looks like this when you have your 3 layers together. This on its own, like I said, you can use a marker and add some little black dots at the bottom, at the center here, and it looks like a flower just on its own. So Now let's start assembling our flower. The camellia, you have to think of a square, okay? You have one of your base, okay? And what I do is I mount it, okay, I should start here. So you have one like this, and the leaves need to overlap. See, and you can go quite deep, like maybe 1/4 of an inch with inside the circle, like this. And so you'll see that when you're finished, it should kind of look almost like a square. And then when we add the second layer, you know, so that's what you want to do with the first 4 petals, 4 large ones for your base. When that's done, all glued, you use your second base, and then you're going to put it in the center. It just makes the flowers solid. And then you add your second layer by staggering the petals. So I'm going to start gluing. Very nice. So most of the techniques that I used to make the paper flowers from the book, even like the large ones like this, or the smaller ones like the peony or the gardenia or the dahlias, I like to use tools that I already have at home, like paint brushes, or I like to use my sushi sticks to curl some of the smaller petals. I like the sushi sticks because they kind of go from a little thicker to very pointy. So you have like all the size of your curling. Anyways. And then for the peony, like this one here, like the class that I'm doing at the end of the month, because the peony, like each petal looks like a scoop, I'm using measuring spoons from my baking sets, you know, like and it's the rounded shaped. And so if for the people who book the class and purchase the supplies, the pre-cut petals, and so I ship along, like I have spoons for everybody. Oh yeah, I have to add my second circle before, see? I finished my first layer, so I'm gonna put the second circle in. Need more glue. Okay, like this. So now I'm gonna add my second layer. I'm gonna just add more glue. Let me tell you, this trick of melting the tip of your glue stick, unbelievable. Saved me from losing my glue sticks all the time. So when I'm adding my second layer, see, I'm staggering the petals so it's in between 2 petals. And then you wanted to do the same thing so it looks like a second square, but layered up, it looks like a flower. Okay. I'm having a glue gun issue here. There we go. Is everybody following okay? So this one roughly should be around 14 inches diameter, sometimes a little bit more. And if you wanted to create a cluster with just the camellia, but you wanted to have different kind of dimension, what you can do is use the smaller, you know, the smaller ones like this, and use 8 of those with your center, and you just have a smaller camellia altogether. It looks fabulous. And then if you wanted to create even more dimension, you can cut smaller ones like this. So altogether, you should have 12 petals, 8 large ones, 4 medium ones. You add it to the center of your flower. So we'll do that. Like this. Or if you wanted to see it all in the same color, that's the camellia flower. It's a classic. It's a beautiful flower. Also, sometimes when I started to do lately is I use paint and paint brushes, and I would add some details sometimes on the petals, some colors on the edge. I mean, the sky's the limit, right, of how you can customize your own bloom. So let's do the leaves. Scissors. All of you in your kit receive 6 sheets of paper that complement your color palette. I'm using this color for my sunset palette. So what you want to do is on the, you know, like the longer side, you want to fold it in half. You fold your sheet of paper in half. And then you're going to freestyle a leaf. And how I do it is the folding part is facing me. With the scissors, I'm just going to go here completely on the corner, and I'm going to go down and just kind of make some leaf shape. See? Just simple. It doesn't have to be perfect. So, you know, it just I try to use most of the paper. So when you open it, you have something that looks like a giant leaf, right? But like this is pretty. And then you can fold it. You can give it a little bit of dimension. What I'm going to show you is how to create this effect. You know, like this. So, okay. So you have your leaf, you're going to fold it again, and then on the table, I'm going to lower this so you see it. The folding part is facing me, okay? I'm going to do an accordion on the angle. So I'm just going to start folding on the angle like this. And then I'm going to turn it around like an accordion, and then you fold it, and you fold your accordion on the angle all the way to the bottom. And I remember the first time I did that, I saw a tutorial on YouTube, and I really liked the look of the leaves because it adds some dimension to the clusters. It took me so much practice because I was always doing it upside down, like the other way around. And then when you open it, you have a beautiful shaped leaf. Isn't that nice? You see me, right? You see my hands? Yeah. Good? Okay. So let's do this. As I mentioned, here in Canada, we have lots of humidity, especially in the summer. So sometimes when you mount the flowers on your surface, the flowers might start to look like this after a while. And you don't want that. So what I do is the top petal here, I always like to pin it So I'll use a pin. And if you use double-sided tape, you wanted to put the tape like more like in the center here. See, you can see that. Okay. And then I'm gonna add another pin on the second layer, but closer to the base. So this way I know these petals here will always stay up. They're not gonna start drooping down. Okay, that looks good, eh? I'm gonna add my smaller one. So, this. And the same thing, I use my pin at the top petal here, and the second one, I think I'm gonna have to. Yeah. Okay, so you can see, yep. Then the camellia. Okay. The camellia. And again, to the top petal here, I'm gonna add a pin. And see how I overlap them a little bit, because I like them when they're nice and tight. And then I'm gonna add another pin here. Right? Now, the leaves. That's the fun part. I like to add lots of leaves to my cluster. Just make sure that stays. Okay. So you have 3 flowers. So I like to add 2 leaves on each of the there's one here going like this, and the other one now you let me know if you have a question, because now I can't see you. See? And then 2.
I have a question.
Yes?
You mount the leaves also with the tape?
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. Usually if I use directly on my wall, I will use the double-sided tape behind the leaves, or push pins. Or if you use a canvas, you know, like sometimes you can buy like a canvas and you just can mount the flowers on that. Then I use the hot glue. I'm really fortunate to have a husband that pre-cuts the petals for me. I have some vines like that he cuts for me. These are shapes that I found on Google. You know, I Googled some leaf templates, shapes. I don't know who they're from. I'm not taking credit for the design. I just think they're really beautiful. And since I'm not selling them, they're part of my backdrop. So I think most of you received something that complements your kit. So I'm going to show you how you can shape that into your cluster. My last leaf. See the difference with the leaves, how beautiful it is, eh? And then of course, when I'm using the blue, because I'm the sunset color, and you can, these here too, like you can use your smaller dowel and just give them a little bit of curl for dimension, softly. It doesn't have to be too tight curls. Anyways, you can play around and create this beautiful backdrop. Isn't that nice? See, if I put my little flower here, I can glue directly on the petals or on the leaf. at this point, the finishing touches are all you, right? And this one here, I can put it here or here. And once you're done, if you mount the flowers somewhere in your house, take some pictures. I love when my ladies go home and then they do their own installation and they send me pictures of the flower in their home. It's so pretty. And then sometimes they allow me to share that. Oops, I'm losing my ribbon. To share the photo on my social media, so I can boast how proud I am of all of you, you know, your beautiful creations that you did together. So anyways, so that was our 2 hours, ladies.
Thank you.
If you have questions, don't hesitate to contact me on Facebook or Instagram or even via my website. If I don't reply right away, don't mind me. If after a couple of days I didn't reply, then just send another message. Probably because sometimes I reply to messages in my head. And then I forget to actually reply.
Can we see everyone's flower?
Yes, people.
Oh,
Oh, wow, cool.
Oh my goodness. Look at this. Eileen, I like the red with the black. Nice.
me too.
Very nice. Yeah. Awesome.
And this is blue poppy.
Oh, pretty.
And that's our camellias.